So, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the 11th lesson of this course and the second installment in which we're analyzing the editing post-production process of smartphone videography. I am very excited to introduce you to editing B-roll in this 11th lesson of this course. This right here is going to be our lecture outline. We're going to start with an introduction. I'm going to introduce you to the concept of B-roll and our aspirations when we're editing B-roll. What are our goals, what we want to deliver, what emotions and tone we're trying to deliver to the audience. Then we're going to move to the visual aspects of editing B-roll. This is very important and very creative. In this field, B-roll, especially in post-production, is where you can unleash your creativity and flex your creative muscles. Then we're moving into the auditory aspects of editing B-roll. This is also very important. And after that, after the recap, obviously, we're going to have another lesson on how to edit sound effects and the importance of sound effects in post-production. So enough of the introduction, let's move to analyze what B-roll is and how we edit B-roll. Obviously, before we start analyzing how to edit B-roll and how to construct the perfect timeline and how to make it look beautiful, we're going to start with the basics. So let's analyze what is really B-roll. B-roll is supplemental footage. This is why it's not called A-roll, it is called B-roll, that supplements the main action, which of course is A-roll. A-roll, as we discussed, could be the talking points on an interview. So B-roll pretty much adds visual variety and guides the story in a separate, unique way. The whole point of an engaging B-roll is again to keep the audience looking at the screen without getting bored. This is why again B-roll, I want you to remember, supplements A-roll. Now, editing B-roll is way better than editing A-roll. It is also way harder. While editing B-roll, you can get creative. It is very enjoyable, but remember that it is also time and energy consuming, because again, whenever you need to be creative and you need to stress those creative muscles, this is going to be time and energy consuming. But knowing how to successfully edit and create B-roll is a very, very useful skill. If you're interested in how to shoot and edit B-roll, I have a separate course on that, so you can again dig deeper into B-roll by watching this course. But for now, we're just going to cover the basics in this lesson right here. So the goal of a great B-roll. These are the key things that I want you to keep in mind while we're going through those slides in this lesson. First of all, you need to nail a correct color balance. This is the first goal to achieve a great B-roll. You need the color to be on point. In addition to that, great B-roll also delivers this cinematic look. On top of that, you don't want your B-roll to be distracting. We don't want our viewers to get distracted from the main story. We want our B-roll to complement the story, not distract the viewers from the story. And finally, obviously, great B-roll is creative. You can get very creative in this particular field of videography. Now, to help you understand better B-roll, I have subdivided this lesson into two categories: how to edit the visual aspects of B-roll and how to edit the auditory aspects of the B-roll, and more specifically, music. In each one of those categories, I'm going to analyze different aspects. So we're going to film this in different subcategories. For example, in the visual aspects, we're going to talk about effects, transitions, the pacing of your B-roll in slow motion. And then when it comes to the auditory aspects, we're going to talk about music, how to find music, where to source music. And then we're going to have a separate lesson on sound effects, because I believe that sound effects are very, very important and unique, and you need to understand them further in a different lesson. So this is going to be, again, the outline of today's lesson. So enough with the introduction, let's move to the first subcategory of editing B-roll, which is going to be the visual aspects. As we said before, visual aspects are effects, transitions, letterbox, slow motion, and again, the pacing of your B-roll edit. So we're going to start by analyzing what the correct pacing of a B-roll is. Now, when I'm referring to pacing, I'm referring to the correct trimming of clips. So the first thing, before we apply transitions, before we apply effects, slow motion, or letterbox, we need to trim our clips and import them. So first we import the clips to our timeline, and then we just trim them to their best parts. There is no talking on B-roll usually, so we don't have to take care about audio. We just trim to have the best parts of each video. And for each clip, remember that we keep 1 to 5 seconds. So 5 seconds is probably going to be the maximum that you will keep from each clip. This is why in the shooting lessons of this course, we discussed to keep your clips short, obviously because in the post-production, we're not going to use more than 5 seconds from each clip. So these are the things that I want you to remember. When it comes to pacing, you need to pace your clips by trimming them and keeping 1 to 5 seconds of each clip. This is going to be the optimal result. Now, after we trimmed our clips, it is time to pace them. And when I refer to pacing, I mean that you need to put the clips in the correct order to facilitate the story, so you don't make the viewers awkward. We need, again, our story is the king in this videography game. We need everything to help our story. So in order to pace the clips correctly to match the story, we need to match together clips with same duration, same movements, same angles, and again, clips that refer to the same storyline. So to make the videos more satisfying, again, try to match clips with same duration, same movements, and clips that are shot from same camera angles. After we're done with the first layer of B-roll editing, which is of course to import and paste our clips, we have the option to add effects. Now I want to make a huge explanation point here. Just because we have the option to add effects doesn't necessarily mean that we need to add effects. And you can pretty much add as many effects as you want to a clip. We can change the speed, we can distort the clips with effects, we can add reflections, we can add filters, we can add animations, but me personally, I never use any of those effects. The most usual effect that I have found and I use are perhaps some color grading or some color correction effects. In general, as a rule of thumb, remember, don't overuse effects and don't use, in fact, that much effects. Now, if you want to invest your time and actually dig in effects and learn how to use them and where to find them, I can help you. There are 2 ways to actually source effects. The first one is to create your own effects. So by choosing a clip and just manipulating the sound, distorting it by yourself or changing the color by yourself. But the other way is just download an effect from, again, an online source. And there are many online stores that they sell effects for free or paid. This is one of the best online stores to buy effects, transitions, and other plugins. This right here is the online store of a great creator called Ryan Angle. I'm going to have the link for this store in the description. And if you're using Final Cut Pro, which is my editing software of preference, you can go into this website and actually purchase some effects. Remember that they also have some great free options in there. So even if you don't want to spend a single buck, you can still enter this website, put your email, and then you just claim your free effects. One thing that I want to point out again that we mentioned earlier, remember that effects are the #1 way to ruin the story. And when I say ruin the story, I pretty much refer to distracting the viewers. If the viewers get distracted in any aspect of your editing, for example, they get distracted by your transitions or your effects or too much slow motion, this is a great way to just ruin the story. And a very common characteristic of beginners is the fact that beginners tend to overuse effect. They've become very excited by all the different variability that they have in effects, and they just add effects everywhere, and this completely ruins the visual aspect of their B-roll. So please be careful with effects. Simple is, again, the best way to go with effects. Don't ruin the story and don't distract the viewers. This is very important for you to remember. Now it's time to move to transitions, and transitions are a very big chapter when editing B-roll. It is very important for you to understand the importance of transitions, and we talked about transitions. We have a separate lesson in this course when it comes to built-in camera transitions, so transitions that we could shoot with our hands. As I mentioned in that lesson, it is way better and more optimal for you to keep everything during production and not leave it for post-production. Post-production, again, is a last result. That being said, transitions rarely applied during production, and most transitions are applied during post-production. Remember that it is very easy to apply a transition post-production, and if used correctly and utilized correctly, they don't distract the viewer, so they facilitate the story rather than destroy it. This is very important for transitions. These are some of the most common transitions that you can apply to your B-roll. I'm not going to go very deep into those transitions because, again, this is not going to be a 1-hour editing lesson. This is just the superficial things that I want you to just remember, that these are the most common types of transitions to, again, apply to your B-roll. We have the fade in transition, the fade out transition, the iris in, the iris out, the jump cut transition, and my personal favorite, the cross dissolve. An example of a cross dissolve transition is a transition that I add at the end of each lesson of this course. We can see that my video just fades out from this visual video right here to just a black screen. This, for example, a cross dissolve transition and my favorite transition that I add in every single one of my B-roll videos. Another thing that I want you to remember is that those transitions that I mentioned right now are obviously available in every single editing software, no matter if it is Final Cut Pro or a free editing software that is downloaded from your phone. So these are widely available. If you want to download transitions which are more specialized and more sophisticated, you can obviously do it from an online store, just like I have recommended you. The Ryan Angle online store is a perfect destination to download any plugins. That means effects, titles, transitions. I downloaded many of my transitions from that store. Now, obviously, plugin transitions tend to be very sophisticated and look cool, so you don't want to overuse them, but it is very cool to have one of those transitions, and they're completely free. So again, if you're a Final Cut Pro user, I suggest you to go in this website and download some free transitions to use. Please, please, please watch out in transitions, just as we said to watch out in effects. Don't use a transition in every single clip, and don't use most built-in transitions that are found in your editing software. Most built-in transitions that are not plugins, so we didn't download from the web, are usually trash. They're not meant to be used, or they were meant to be used in very previous years, just like effects. Please don't use most of the effects. Please don't use most of the transitions. If you feel like a part of your story needs to have a cool transitions, go ahead and add it. But if this is not the case, please just use them carefully and use them without ruining, again, the storyline which we're trying to keep intact of the viewers. Now that we're done with the transitions, it is time to move to the next category of our visual aspects, which is slow motion. Now, we had, again, a separate lesson in slow motion and frame rates. Know that slow motion can only be added in post-production. We obviously can't slow footage down as we shoot. We can just adjust our frame rate. So obviously, as we said here, slow motion depends on the frame rate that you've shot this video. In addition to that, slow motion can really help the story and is very, very important in B-rolls. Most B-roll shots are actually slowed down, so I totally recommend you to use slow motion in your B-roll edits. It just makes everything look more cool, more cinematic. It sets the correct tone and the correct vibe for a B-roll. In general, slow motion is seen at the core of B-roll edits. Obviously, it creates more engaging videos. As we discussed in the stabilization lesson of this course, it diminishes minor shakes. So the more you slow down a clip, the more shaky it won't be. Again, it increases the dramaticness of a video and provides us more smooth footage. All in all, it is absolutely recommended for you to slow down your B-roll clips. Some things that I want you to remember, because again, it can get really confusing with all the frame rates, the different frame rates, and how much you can slow down a video. Remember that the higher frame rate you use to shoot a video, so again, frame rates could be 24 frames per second, 60 frames per second, 120 frames per second, or 240 frames per second, and of course, more than that. So the bigger your frame rate, the more you can slow down your video. I also want you to remember that you don't need to slow down your video too much. This could also get distracting. We can deliver different results with very slowed down video, more dramatic shots, but again, this could get distracting and we don't want our viewers to get distracted from the story. And in my opinion, slowing down a video by 50%, so 2 times slowed down, is the fine line between a video being distracting and having the correct and valuable stuff that slow motion can give us, for example, dramaticness and diminishing all the minor shakes. So this was pretty much slow motion. Now I would like to discuss about the perfect B-roll. So let's say that this right here was a video. Of course, this is a still from a video, but let's say that this right here is a video, and let's say that this is the perfect B-roll. The perfect B-roll obviously depends on the story that the B-roll refers to, but in general, it should be slowed down. It should have the letterbox, which are those 2 cinematic lines again that make the video more dramatic, and the perfect B-roll should have just some transitions and some effects without distracting the viewers from the story. In addition to that, pacing is key when it comes to B-roll. You can add as much slow motion, as much letterbox transitions and effects as you want, but if your videos are not correctly paced, the movements aren't matched and don't facilitate the story, then we're gonna have a problem. So this is the perfect B-roll. We need it to be slowed down, to have letterbox transitions, some transitions and some effects, and great pacing. In addition to that, I'm going to give you some tips that I have accumulated through the years of editing B-roll. The first one is that experience is key when it comes to B-roll. Then the next tip that I have to give you is that you need to try to perfect shooting, so the production process rather than post-production process, which is our last resort. And finally, to not overdo it. We discussed a lot about not overdoing it. So these were the visual aspects of editing B-roll. Now it's time to move to the auditory aspects. So let's go. Now, audio is a very neglected era of editing. Pretty much no beginner tends to mess with audio. They think that audio is not important, but I can tell you from personal experience that audio is what will completely elevate your production value, and audio, the importance of audio and the amount of detail that a filmmaker has applied to the audio is what separates beginner from intermediate and experienced editors. So audio is of key importance in B-roll, and in general, it is subdivided into music and sound effects that you can add to your videos. Sound effects are a very big category of audio. This is why I dedicated the next lesson of this course in which we're going to talk about sound effects. So for this subcategory of editing B-roll, we're just going to talk about music. So let's go. First, when it comes to music, I want you to remember that the correct audio track sets the correct tempo for a video. Now, that being said, the correct audio track is very hard to find, and I want you to remember that when you're editing music, the music should complement your video. Your video shouldn't complement the music. Music should complement your visual aspects of the video. Now, how to choose the correct song for an edit? This is a very big question and a very big discussion, and the first way to tackle this question is to ask yourself, do you need your song to be copyright free? If you need your song to be copyright free, you of course have to go with a no royalty library, and you're probably gonna have to spend some money to find the perfect song that is copyright free. If you don't care about your video being copyright free, you can pretty much use any song from YouTube and it's fine. In general, if you don't know what copyright is, if you're using a video for a commercial, or if you're gonna get paid for your edit, you pretty much want to have a no royalty song played behind in your video. If you're gonna keep the B-roll edit that you're using for yourself, so you don't care about royalty and money and stuff, it's fine to use any song, obviously, that you like. Just can download it from YouTube and go from there. So when sourcing, so when downloading music to use to your edits, there are two ways to go, the free and the paid option. You can also find copyright free music on YouTube, and we can download this from YouTube to MP3 converter. You just paste the link of the video that you want to download there, convert, download, and then just download a clip from YouTube. So this is a free way to download any music that you want, any music track from YouTube. Again, you type in your search browser YouTube to MP3 converter, you paste the link of the YouTube video that you want to download, then click convert to MP3, and then you have the audio sample of this video. Then drag and drop this audio sample to your editing software, and just like that, you just have a free music to use. Then comes the paid way to source music, and the most common sound library online in which you pay a monthly subscription to have access to millions and millions of songs that are copyright free is Epidemic Sound. I'm not affiliated with Epidemic Sound in no way. I'm just mentioning it because this is very helpful, and it's just the best way to source copyright free music. So if you tend to create commercials and to monetize this hobby of filmmaking and editing, Epidemic Sound would be the perfect, I think, choice for you. Now, when sourcing soundtracks, we talked about where to find. Now it's time to talk about how to use them. When you source soundtracks to use for your edit, I need you to pay attention to the tone and the pacing. These are two completely different parameters of your soundtrack that you're going to use, and they're very, very important for you to know what the tone and the pacing produces. So the tone could be, for example, lo-fi, it could be an uplifting tone, or it could be an electronic tone. It is pretty much the genre of the song, of the soundtrack that you're using. When it comes to the pacing, is how fast the song or how slow the song goes. So it could be, for example, a fast pace, a slower pace, or a very just chill song. So we can have, for example, an uplifting tone with a slower pace, or a lo-fi tone with a fast-paced pace, or an electronic tone with a chill pace. Tone and pacing don't have to correlate, but the fact is that tone and pacing should totally match with the visual aspects of your video. This is the name of the game, matching the tone and the pacing of your music with the visual aspects of your video. And this is one of the hardest things to do in filmmaking. Many videographers in my level and above have a very hard time matching the tone and the pacing of the clip with the visual aspects of the video. But there is one way to get your way around this. The best, fastest, and easiest way to match the tone of music with the visual aspects of your video is to first brainstorm the music track, so know the music before pretty much you start shooting the video. So you need to edit the video to the music track that you chose. And I want you to think of it that way. Once you have your footage and you've shot a video and you don't know what music to use, then you need to find out the tone that you're trying to deliver with your video, and then try to find in millions and millions of songs an audio track that will match this tone. This is pretty much very hard to do. On the other hand, if you have created, for example, a playlist in your Spotify, just a Spotify playlist, and you know the song that you want to use for an edit, then you can compromise and change the way that you shoot during the production process to automatically match the tone of the song. So you can pretty much play the song on your head and then choose to shoot on a different way to match the song. This, in my opinion, is the fastest and easiest way to match the tone again of the music to the tone and the vibes you want to deliver with your visual aspects of editing. And this is a huge tip that I want you to put in your head. Editing the video to the music track is very important. It drastically increases the quality of your B-roll. It is very satisfying to watch, obviously, for the viewers, because it is just satisfying to match the song with the video, and obviously this increases the engagement of the viewers. So please edit the video to your song. Now, to close with this second subcategory of editing B-roll, the audio, those are 4 tips that I have to give you. The first one is that there is no perfect song, that it is okay to cut a video to match a song, to find audio track again before you start shooting, and not to mix songs together. So let's go ahead and analyze each one of those 4 tips. So the first tip that I have to give you is that there is no perfect song for your video. We discussed this earlier in this lesson, but once footage is shot, it is very hard for you to find the perfect song. This is called decision fatigue, and when you have all of those millions of different options of songs to decide to match with your video, you just end up being fatigued. This is called decision fatigue, and you don't know which one to use. So please, first, step 1 is to find the song, and step 2 is to shoot a video based on the tone and the vibe that this song delivers. As we discussed previously, I need you also to edit the tone of the song to match, again, the visual vibe that you want to deliver with your video. This is going to give us the best result. I'm not going to further analyze this. We talked about this in this lesson. I think that you know it by now. And the final audio tip that I have for you is not to mix songs. Please remember that you are a beginner videographer. You're not a DJ. While trying to mix songs, the fact that we have those editing programs makes it very easy and interesting for us to start also mixing music rather than only mixing videos. The truth is that you're not a DJ, you're a beginner videographer, and trying to mix songs will pretty much, at the start at least, will produce awkward results. The viewers can tell when songs are mixed and that it's not an original mix. And on top of that, there are many already, shot and edited remixes of songs on YouTube. So I don't understand why you just can't download a remix from YouTube and you need to mix it by yourself. So this was the final tip that I had to give you, is to not mix songs by yourself on your editing software. Now this is pretty much lesson 11. Let's go ahead and recap everything we learned. This was a big lesson. So when it comes to recap, we talked about the importance of B-roll. We talked about the fact that B-roll is supplementary to A-roll. We talked about what we want a good B-roll to deliver. We want it to, again, supplement the story. We don't want it to be distracting. We talked about slow motion, and then we, again, subdivided B-roll into 2 categories, the visual aspects and the auditory aspects. Visual aspects were further subdivided into slow motion, letterbox, effects, and transitions. We analyzed each one of those subcategories and some key tips that I want you to remember. And then we further subdivided the auditory aspects into music and sound effects. Obviously, when it comes to music, we talked about where to source it, where to find it, how to pace music, and how to match music with the visual aspects of your video. Now it is time to talk about sound effects. So in the next lesson, which is going to be the final lesson of the editing segment of this course, we're going to be discussing about sound effects. So I'm very happy to have you here. Let's move to the next lesson.